Yeah, I want to welcome my very good friends. Uh, Let me start with Professor Victor Jatula, who has been a very good friend of mine and also of Kunle. We've been together. I think our friendship actually started around 1998, if I'm not mistaken. That was when uh, uh, Professor Jatula was in our church for the first time, and then subsequently he came to join the church. And then ever since that time, we've maintained good relationship from that point, and we still continue to keep that friendship. It's been a friendship that is very mutual, very beneficial, uh, and I can really say that whatever each of us is today is because of that um, mutual uh, pushing ourselves here and there and trying to get the best out of one another. And I am not surprised at all that each of us is doing exceedingly well. I cannot look forward to any other time than the time I'm having with my best friends. But Victor, as I usually call you,
Yeah.
we've been together for a long time. And then, so we are going to have a wonderful conversation together today. And of course, I have my co-host with me, who has been with me since the beginning of the year. That is Kunle. We have been co-hosting the Leadership Blueprint podcast together. And I know we are on the right path with this podcast because I've had people giving me feedback. I even have people who are always looking up to the newest edition of the podcast. The moment I drop it on Facebook, I usually get people sending me comments, sending encouraging words for the work that we are doing. And today is not going to be anything less than what we've been doing. It's going to be an exciting time where we'll be talking about democracy and political leadership in Africa. And of course, my very good friend, uh, Professor Jatula.
Let's call me Victor.
Okay, my very good friend Victor has been a professor uh, of history, right? Of history. So it's going to help us a lot to learn a little bit more about how democracy is working across the continent of Africa. But before we go into that conversation, I want to thank you again for helping me to endorse my first major book, and that is Neighborhood Transformation, a specialized ministry to African immigrants. I know you read that book and then you wrote a very powerful endorsement for the book. I just want you, because you've read the book, I just want you to share with our viewers what you think that book is all about.
Oh wow. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for giving me this platform to say a few things about politics, leadership in Africa. Thank you also for bringing the three of us together. The last time we met like this was so long ago, almost 3 decades ago, and seeing all three of us together again, it's like makes me feel delighted, nostalgic, excited because I know that some people you meet and you part, and some you meet never to part again. So it's a delight to be here. Kunle, Solomon, always a pleasure. Yeah.
The pleasure's
About
all.
the book, I think there's always a disconnect or largely a disconnect between the church and society, in that the church is is engage with the things that the church is always engaged in. However, the connection between the church and society has become very blurry more recently. So it seems like there's a big divide between what is happening in the church and what's happening out there. So that book, your book, is a bridge, and it talks about the relevance of the church in an agonizing, dying world, how the church can go beyond its boundaries
mm,
and reach out to people, particularly immigrants
mm,
of African descent.
mm.
And you went beyond the philosophy, but even into the practical aspect of how the church can be relevant to society. So yeah, I think it's timely, and it's like a blueprint for other churches to follow. That in as much as we want to go to heaven and take as many people as we want, we should also be a blessing to the world and meet the needs of people around us. Yeah, so what a powerful book. We look forward to reading more from you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Um, well, the short bio that you sent to me, you made a reference that you have been preoccupied with understanding African political economy, and then exploring the racial, political, historical, media, and economic dimension of inequality, underdevelopment, and poverty across the continent. And I can remember, I don't know if you still remember this, but it's still very fresh in my mind. I don't think Kunle was there at that time. I think he has gone on industrial training that time. There was a time we were having a meeting and you were sharing with us. I could still remember people were there. I know Brother Kofo was there, Sister Atinoka Wanda was there. I was there, your wife, Sister Yinka was there. And then you were sharing with us how you felt called uh, into the short word that you used that day was communication. Everything centers around communication. And then, of course, you can begin to interpret that communication to include media, to include publishing. That you were sharing that with us, and you really felt that you were called into that space. And to be very frank with you, I wouldn't say I am surprised with what you have done with that calling and your responsibility as a professor in the university. So I just want you to kind of bring us to that memory and your current passion to address some of the challenges, some of the political challenges that we have in Africa today.
Oh, thank you so much. That's way back memory line,
Yeah.
memory lane. Yeah, I think after giving my life to Christ, just before I went into uni,
Yeah.
um, I started reading the gospel, and I put in for the entrance examination to university, and I wanted to study law. The major reason was because I saw the impact of Apostle Paul in the scripture. And I thought in my mind that his background in law must have kind of prepared him for the ministry.
Mhm.
So I had a passion to study law as a means to an end. But I didn't make it into law, but I made it into uni. So I had this intention that as
Yeah.
soon as I'm done with my first year in history, I
Yeah.
was going to jump into law
Yeah.
and carry on with that vision. So in uni, I gave 200% that first year.
Mhm.
Not because I loved history so much, but because I wanted to use it as a springboard into law. But as I was wrapping up the first year in uni, I had that dream where that word communication was like loud and clear. And you know the thing about when God speaks to you is that it doesn't need to say everything. It says something that you interpret and it makes sense. So that's how that word communication. I can't remember the particular day I shared it, but yeah. So I felt a bit more comfortable studying history.
That is to tell you that it really made sense to some of us that had it that day. For me to
Wow.
even be able to recollect,
Yeah.
Let me be
made
honest
a
with
lot of
you.
sense.
I must have been there as well because I remember he was sharing that. Whether he shared with me privately or
Okay,
I don't recall, but I definitely he shared that with me as well. So
okay,
and I was watching to see how that would transpire. But then I noticed that all along, Barito has always been very articulate with
yeah,
Thank you.
the way it would communicate his ideas with
yeah.
clarity.
That's
That's
true.
always been
That's true.
part of
That's
it.
true.
So,
Yeah. So thank you so much for those comments. So I carried on with the history, and after the first degree, I went to UI to do a master's. In between, Inca and I got married because we felt what's the point in waiting for us to have everything? We have each other, and I think we had everything.
Yeah.
The material things will
That,
come.
that was a bold step.
It was quite bold. It was quite
Some
bold.
of us couldn't.
It was quite bold because it was like a couple of years after uni.
it
Yeah.
was.
We didn't even have a car. We didn't even have a car. I was still wrapping
I,
up
I
my
don't even
program in UI.
I don't even recall that I had the honor of being your best
Your
man.
best man, my best man. Yeah, that's true. That's exactly true. Yes, you are my best man. That's true, so true.
Uh,
So what we decided to go ahead and just in fact, there was a day that I thought about my material circumstances and my finances. And I said in my heart that I'm just going to go to Yinka's house in Ijesha and just talk to her and the mom and just say to her that um, the things are not there. The physical material things are not there. Let's pick another year that we'll think about marriage and all that. So I jumped into public transport, and before I got to her house, the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said something like, if you shift it now, or if you change the date, or you alter anything, that's how you continue to change it to eternity. Ah. So by the time I got to their house, I had wanted to say that maybe let's push things forward. In fact, I started saying let's move things closer. Yeah, but you know the way God works, that as the wedding drew closer, favor came from everywhere. Um, if you believe, all things are possible.
yeah.
We got married with what we had, and we just started together. So after a while, after the marriage, we moved to Ibadan because I was doing the program at UI, so to closer to Ibadan. And besides, Ibadan was like a bit more affordable than Lagos.
Mm.
So we were thinking, okay, let's start from Ibadan. So I kept on going to the program in Ibadan. I picked up a job in the publishing house. I don't know if it's still there. It's on Ring Road,
Mm.
Spectrum Publishing,
Spectrum.
Spectrum Books.
I think they are still.
Yeah, it was owned by a Dutchman, some back house guy. And on the meager income we earned, we just kept on going. She was doing some business by the side, and we just carried on. So I found myself in that communication publishing space, and from there we got the opportunity to relocate to the Republic of Ireland. It was just by divine arrangement. We got to know that if you have a baby in Ireland, that you get papers, and so we had Grace in Dublin. And Yinka came back, and then after she came back, we got news that if you're parents of an Irish-born child, there was a court case that a Chinese woman had a baby in the Republic, but she was not documented.
Mm.
So she was about to be deported back to China.
Mm.
But the issue of the baby became controversial.
Mm.
So she went to the EU court. And the argument was that, yes, you can deport me because I'm illegal. But what happens to my child? Because my child is not illegal. Will you deport me and my child? Or will you deport a European citizen to China? So that was controversial. Will you separate us, take my baby from me, and to the care of the state, and deport me to China? No, the EU law says that you can't deprive a child of their parents when they're still alive. So the only logical conclusion was that you would document parents of EU citizens, not because of the parents, but because of the child. You can't deport the parent, you can't separate the family, so documentation. But documentation was like, okay, just documentation. So there was another layer of controversy that once they are documented, you should empower them to care for their children, enable them to work in the state so that they can fulfill the role of a parent because they can't just be there and the state will. So when the EU made that law, we had in Nigeria, we had an Irish-born child. So we found our way back to Ireland. We got documented.
That was
And you know
fun.
the funny thing, less than a year after that judgment stayed, but a new law was made that every child born in the state cannot become a citizen except if the parents are citizens. So we were just, I mean, about the last batch of people
Wow.
that got in before the door was shut.
Divine arrangement.
Yes, and we've been here for that long. On getting here, as both of you are both aware, your qualification in Nigeria doesn't really mean much.
Exactly. Exactly.
They don't think much of your qualification because everything about Africa is demonized, is looked down upon deliberately. So we went back, although that's still very controversial because 90% or 97%, I don't have any data, I'm just pulling that from somewhere. 97% of people that come from Africa to do a master's, they do extremely well.
Yeah.
So it does indicate that there's something good about our education.
Yeah.
Although it's not recognized internationally. But when we come from whatever background we come from and we compete on a level playing field, we do very well.
Exactly.
So that's credit to our education and our background.
Mm.
So I went back to college, did some degrees, and then found my way back into communication. And I've been teaching a mix of journalism, media studies, and politics. We have 2 kids in Kunle. Both of them are
Very
uni.
powerful connection.
Yes, God has been faithful to us.
Connecting your dream to your real life vocation. That was
Yes.
powerful.
That is amazing. I mean, do you want us to go straight into the sort of the meat of the discussion now? I think
Yeah,
we might,
yeah. We are already in.
we might as well.
Yeah.
So, well, I've got a question which I think would be a very good place to start to get us into the conversation proper, and that's to do with democracy in Africa. Now, obviously, if you look at democracy in the way it's sort of materialized on the continent, there are at times you do have cause for concern. You wonder what is that? Where is this heading? So the question then is, what is your view on the future of democracy in Africa, and more so, our very dear country, Nigeria?
Okay,
What do you think?
interesting question. I think before I get to the question, just to like do some backup. I think politics is at the center of everything because it's through politics that society is organized. Without politics, nothing happens. So we must get it right politically. For example, you may have spaces where they have a lot of resources, but when the politics is bad, there's underdevelopment and poverty. So resources is good to have, resources good, but the politics is very important. And there are places like the UK, like Republic of Ireland, that they're just minimum resources.
That's right.
But they do well. Not because the people are more intelligent than everybody else elsewhere, but it's just because they get their politics right. So that's my major interest in politics. The future of democracy in Africa is very, very positive. The future is very good.
What do you say so?
Comparatively, we are the youngest continent practicing democracy currently.
Okay.
The UK, you can date their democracy as far back as 1250. This is 1215 when the Magna Carta was written. That took power away from the states, from the king, and vested power in the states. From 1215, the Magna Carta says that the king does not have arbitrary power over the states. That just like every citizen, the king is also subject to the law. Now, between 1215 and 2015, that's about 700 years of evolution, of getting it right, of making mistakes, of perfecting a system that is not natural, because naturally we are a little bit wayward, lawless. Human nature does not like to be regulated. Yeah, Thomas Hobbes. So democracy in Africa is about, I mean, okay, independence was in the 60s, and then we had a period of military rule. And when we came back together in the early 90s, Nigeria 1999, Ghana earlier than 99, most Africa, they call it the third wave, the third democratic wave. The first wave was in the 60s, the second wave was 70s, and then the third wave was in the 90s. So we're quite young, 20-something years. Nigeria is 26 years?
Since 1999.
Yeah, 26 years.
Yeah.
America's democracy is uninterrupted for the last 200 years.
Yeah, almost 200 years. Or even
yeah,
more.
200, uninterrupted, no military rule.
Yeah.
Well, so
and it doesn't even
our
mean
age, we are doing well.
yeah, no, I mean, it doesn't even mean that the US has got it right.
Well, I would say it's only mathematically because there, in some of these states you mentioned, there is also a bit of intentionality in theirs, but our own have not seen that intentional, national, regional. There could be issues if you are intentional about something, but when you are not intentional and then you are just hoping that things will get better, even though you are still young in your own mind, hoping that things will get better with time. But I think without a deliberate effort to make things better,
yeah,
it may be a delusion to think that time will heal the anomalies that we have.
No, I get what you're saying, and there's a lot of validity in it, and there's a lot of impatience because we want Africa to develop, we want Nigeria to do better. But in terms of how things evolve, we're still getting to know democracy proper. And the current democracy we have is still driven and propelled by the rich and the powerful. We're evolving. And democracy really takes root when power belongs to the people.
Yeah, I agree completely.
We are not going to be, I mean, we, the people, are not going to be given the power by those in government.
Yeah.
But we're going to take power back slowly, gradually, progressively. What happened 20 years ago is not going to happen this year, or it's not happening this year. And what will happen 20 years from now will not be the same. Young people are a bit more articulate.
And the players will be different as well.
Yeah. And there are a lot of emerging players. The system is changing. A time is going to come that people will not just demand, but will ensure that there's accountability. It doesn't mean that power will not come back to reclaim what they are losing, because they're going to lose. But that continuity and that dialogue will continue for a long time, to the point that it will be similar to the United States, similar to the United Kingdom, where elections will be more credible. Because that's the point I'm getting at in my LinkedIn post recently, that elections are the very important portion or part of democracy that we have to get right. Because at that entry point, if we ensure that the right people get in, the rest is not so easy, but it becomes easier. Currently, our elections are not credible, not free, not fair. Our electoral laws are a bit wobbly. So it allows the rich and powerful to manipulate the system. And once they get in, they're in to recover what they've spent. They are investors, so to say.
Yeah.
And when a person has all the machinery of the state, the police at their disposal, the law at their disposal, a lot of money at their disposal, they are unstoppable. So it's difficult to stop them when they're in power, but easier to make sure that as much as possible, we conduct credible elections.
Yeah.
So that the right people can get into the system. I always use this example that very good schools, their admission process is very, very rigid. Like Ivy League University in the US, they are proud to say that we only admit 15%, 25%, because they don't want to do all the big work in bringing in all Jack and Harry.
Sometimes
Once the good students are in,
they deny the children of president admission.
yeah, once the good students are in, they know the job is easy. But in a bad school, anybody comes in, everybody comes in, and when the good and the bad mix up, the bad always want to be in. So yeah, so I think that's why I'm hopeful that we're learning, we're improving, and there's a future for us.
No, thank you for that, because I was going to ask a follow-up question, but I think you started to answer it implicitly, which is, if there is reason to be hopeful, what are some of those metrics that we can start to look at to say, yeah, these are indicators? And I think you already mentioned one of them, which is that the electoral process becomes trending. And so are there other metrics that will start to give us some hope that, okay, I think things are definitely going to be looking up?
Yeah, another way to kind of help us is that there must be more investment in civil education.
That's true.
Yeah, the political class are deliberate in taking funding away from civil society. They're deliberate in silencing those in higher education. They're deliberate in buying the media because they know that these are avenues through which people know what to expect from politics, know their rights in politics, know that those in political offices are not there by inheritance, they are not there because they are smarter, but they are elected public servants. That education is very important, very critical. That's why politicians are trying to shut down social critics, people who have a voice. You know about Delifa Rotimi and his legal ordeal in the hands of Afe Babalola. And that's a typical example of how they want to silence anybody that's raising or asking questions. So one other important metric through which we can get better and we will know that we're getting better is when information, the right information, is getting out there into the public. For example, one time I was talking to a friend of mine just around 2023 election, and I was saying to him that nobody needs to die for any politician. Oh, he said, no, it's the norm. People die during election. People die. It's like, it's normal.
But the children of the politician don't die.
The children of the poor. And after a while, I stopped talking to him. I just realized that one, he's never traveled abroad. He's never seen elections being conducted in different societies, especially civil societies, where they still go to job on election day. Where there's no election violence. When people are so informed
no public holiday on election day.
When people are so informed that I don't have to die for a politician over small money, my life is worth more than that. So I just stopped talking. I said, well, how do you describe a rainbow to somebody who's blind? So that's to tell you how myopic, how uninformed people are, especially in Africa. So yeah, civil society engagement, public education is very central, very key, very important. And I know we're going to get there. Social media is helping us,
Absolutely.
helping
And
society to get information out there.
our electorate would
Yes.
naturally improve the democratic process. No, thank you. And thank you. Those are fantastic points. Shagun, is there anything that comes to mind? I wonder.
Yeah, I just want to ask this question. I've observed that most modern states in the West, in North America, in Asia, I discovered that most of these states, you've mentioned that organizing ourselves politically is very, very crucial to the desired development that we want to see in Africa. But one thing that I have found in countries like China, United Kingdom, United States, Canada, and some other developed countries is that their political system is shaped by ideology. So it's not just that people are just doing things to do the right. They're not just doing the right thing, or they felt compelled to do the right thing. They have a political reason. They have an ideology. They have a worldview that is backing every of their policies. So when they want to write immigration policy, for example, they're not just looking at it from the point of we shouldn't allow people into our country, we should allow people into our country, but they look at it ideologically. How does it match up with what we stand for as a political organization? And I believe that currently in Africa, I don't see any, maybe you can say, I don't know, maybe in South Africa, maybe, I don't know, I cannot really say. But in most African countries, most of these political parties do not have ideology. They don't have a particular worldview that is driving their policies, that is driving their manifesto, that is driving the mandate that they want to serve with the people. So I just want you to walk us through how possessing a political ideology or worldview is crucial to the evolution of the political landscape in Africa, just as you have mentioned.
Yeah, good observation, and I agree with you significantly. We are not unideological as a people and as a continent. There's no absence of ideology.
Yeah.
However, a few things are working against us. One is that poverty has become weaponized deliberately, because within the ruling class, the thinking is that it's when you are well fed and you are comfortable that you ask questions. So let's preoccupy them. Let's preoccupy them with the pursuit of daily bread. Because the hungry man is an angry man, angry with himself, angry with his society. Is not in a good space of mind
to reflect,
to think critically, to ask the right questions. Because he's just burdened with the pursuit of kilamaje. How do we survive? So that's one. That's part of the reason why most of the policies in some African countries, Nigeria inclusive, is anti-poor. You know, Tinubu came in 2 years ago with a lot of promises. And 2 years down the line, things are not easier. People are looking for any means possible to escape. To put food on the table is more difficult than anything else. So poverty is weaponized, not just in Nigeria, but across a lot of countries in Africa. Emigration is part of the consequence. Crime is part of the consequence. Hopelessness is part of the consequence. People taking their lives in secret that we don't know. part of the consequence. So that's critical. Another factor is that, like I said, politics currently on the continent is driven by rich and powerful men, not by people. The last important thing in an election are the votes. I mean, the least important thing in an election are the votes. The votes don't often count, which is a sad reality. That's why people are unengaged. People don't care to vote. Those who vote, they're just doing it because they know at the end of the day, election results are often very different from polling station attendance.
And then it baffles me why a country like Nigeria, with over 200 million population, will still be counting just about 14 million, 15 million people coming out to vote on election day.
In fact, that number is very controversial for many reasons. Number one, we're not a country that loves data.
Yeah.
Not because we don't like data or we don't have the system to put in data, but transparency is not in the interest of the political class.
Yeah.
To follow the law by the letter is not in their interest because they thrive in lawlessness.
Exactly. In chaos.
In chaos. Because it is in chaos that they are able to perpetuate themselves in the system. So they love this chaotic system. They support it. They invest in chaos so that they can manipulate
average Nigerians or average African also enjoy the chaotic society as well, because
not that we are a chaotic people.
Yeah,
but this is the system that they put in place. This is the system that they put in place, and this is the system they want to perpetuate.
Yeah.
The rule of a few over the majority. So that election, the 2023 election, the presidential especially, a large percentage of polling stations reported that the Beavers technology and the IRF did not function. Well, the judge is still out whether it was deliberately or otherwise. Thousands of polling stations could not forward their polling result onto the IRF platform. I mean, for those who are not Nigerians listening to us, Beavers is what you use for voting. IREV is the platform that the results are pasted on. And the idea was like for transparency. So if at the polling station, they will use the Beavers to record the number of votes per candidate. And then they will send that result digitally to the IREV platform of INEC so that everything is done transparently. Because historically, they will do the election polling station results, they will transport it physically, and then in between polling station and collation center, they will stuff the ballots and then manipulate the system. So the idea was, okay, let's digitalize it, digitize it. So transparently, everybody sees at the polling station, this guy 17 votes, this woman 18 votes, and then press send. It should go to the IRF platform where everybody can see it. So each station can monitor the result of their polling election booths. But during the national election, presidential election, Beavers failed in especially opposition stronghold. So now they come back and tell us that only 14 million people voted. How do we account for the failure of Beavers? How do we account for places where coastal areas, in the land where polling stations did not function, did not open on time? How do we account for areas where ballots were stuffed? Areas where the sitting government or the incumbent government had a majority? So the data that we are being fed with, that INEC has, is very contestable. That's why at the end of every election, things move to the Supreme Court because of fraud. I'm not saying opposition is innocent, but currently our system is not determined by the people, it's determined by the powerful. And the powerful, they thrive in chaos. So that's the concern. It's not because people don't want to vote, because we all know that whoever gets into government controls the state. And if I can come back to the ideology question, there's no ideology when a certain class gets into government. This class work hand in glove with multinational companies, with international governments, who thrive when this lawless class are in power.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you take Burkina Faso as an example, in just 2.5 years, they have cleared their national debt.
Mm.
In just 2.5 years, you can go into the UNDP data, World Bank data, IMF data. All the data are saying the same thing, that their
I
economy.
even learned that their college students are earning stipend to go to school. They are not paying tuition at all. Rather than paying
all the metrics have gone up.
Mm.
The economy have improved.
Mm.
They've stopped migration to Europe.
Mm.
They have something they're doing. So it's not because we're not ideological as a people, but the issue with our democracy is at the entry point. Nobody talks about election until there's an election.
Exactly.
However, elections are so important that we should talk about it every year, strengthen it, improve it, so that we can get the right people in government. But sadly, for example, in the Nigerian context, sadly, it is the ruling party that appoints the electoral commissioner. So just as Buhari handpicked the electoral commissioner and the state commissioners, Tinubu is going to handpick. And that really puts these people.
That's going to be massive.
Yeah, that puts these people that are elected or selected in a very delicate position, because you don't want to bite the fingers that fed you. And also, you are not there because of your neutrality. You are placed there to play a role. For example, before 2023 election, Buhari handpicked, no, 2019 election, Buhari handpicked the justice minister. He handpicked the judges in the Supreme Court. He handpicked the INEC chairman. So whether at the ballot, I will win. If you take it to the Supreme Court, I will win. At all angles, I will win. And once these people get into power for the next 4 years, we're stuck.
We're stuck.
Isn't it true then that everyone still has an ideology, regardless of the nature or the quality of that ideology?
Quality of that ideology.
It's still an ideology because
it's a crude one.
There is a strong idea that underpins action. And I think that ideology is in its pure sense. So, which means, regardless of how it pans out, it is still some ideology that's saying it power has to be kept in the hand of the few over and above the rest.
Yes.
And I think that's what the ideology is. And it's evident to say that
I remember a governor at one time who said one of his policies is to provide stomach infrastructure for people. You know, that is just to comment on the kind of ideology that some of these politicians are.
Yeah, keep them poor, keep them beggarly.
Let them do what to do.
Can I throw a little curveball into this conversation? That isn't that also true for every other nation that we look at, frankly?
Yeah, that's so true to some extent. Look at the way our elections, and I think across Africa, elections everywhere else, especially in the West, is based on certain metrics and certain promises. For example, jobs. Tax cut. You know, democracy ultimately should focus on people and their welfare. In the UK, they talk about tax cut, they talk about cost of living, things that everybody will like feel straight in their pocket. But in Nigeria currently, and I think in many other places in Africa, it's all about the next election and where the candidate is from. like in the next election, some of the I did an interview with a politician a couple of weeks ago, last week especially, and it was saying that for 2027, I'm like, we're still in 2025, and the job is not done.
Yeah.
But okay, let's move on. Except for 2027, that Tinubu is likely to come back in. Why? Because he's got the power of incumbency. That the only machinery that can be put in motion to stop Tinubu and APC is if a Northerner and Obi contest for the election. So I said, why a Northerner? He said the North will not want an Igbo man, especially Obi, to be in president, to be the president from 2027 and spend another 8 years there. Because as far as the North is concerned, Tinubu has spent 4 years, or the South has spent 4 years. We have 4 more years. So they are not going to vote for any candidate that want to go beyond 4 years. That's why Obi is talking about 4 year, one term. And they will want a Northerner to come in so that it can balance out because they are afraid. So, of course, all of that makes sense. But the question I was asking in my head is, how does this put food on people's table? How does this, that same friend I was talking about Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu and this guy Rhodes and the election, and he was saying, this my friend, educated, went to Ife. He was saying something like, Rhodes, the wife is Igbo, his mom is Igbo, is half Yoruba, it's only his dad, so Igbos want to take over Lagos. And I said, hang on a second. How does this put food on your table? Electricity. How does this make your life good? Politics is not about where a person is from, or the state of origin. It's about you. But it goes back to that explanation earlier that there's a lot of public ignorance, public misunderstanding of what politics is. People don't see it as me. What do I get from this? What do I gain from this? Collectively. We are still about Muslim Christian candidates, Hausa Igbo candidates, Yoruba, Igbo, all of these things that don't put anything in the pockets and it doesn't improve the life of people.
In other
So
words,
it's quite different, yeah.
in other words, the public has been conditioned in a particular
Significantly conditioned.
to think about politics along the lines of ethnicity, religion, and just whip up emotions along those lines.
Some people die for it.
Absolutely.
And it happened to me, and I'm sure you must have your own experience too, that when you crossed over to the West, and then you saw the way they organize themselves and the things they do and how they talk about things, it was like a culture shock for me. It was like an eye opener. Wow, there's another life. I said to my wife that I think it would be a tragedy for somebody to live in Africa or Nigeria all his life and not travel abroad. Because by the time you get to heaven, you'll be just shocked that what? You guys enjoyed that alive while you were alive? Because I thought electricity was like a natural problem. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you do. Sometimes you even pray about it.
Natural disaster.
To have running water, like to have Wi-Fi, you have to go back in the day, you have to go to a cyber cafe to access the internet. All the things that are basic in life have become prayer points in Africa. It ought not to be. That's my interest in politics, and hopefully using communication as a means for public awareness. I think that's what you guys are doing as well. Public awareness, empowerment, education, re-education, information. We have the best of both worlds, and nothing pains me as an African living in Europe than the way Africans are treated in Europe, in America. The struggles of an African, educated or non-educated. You come into a continent where you are looked at as almost worthless. Whatever you've accomplished in your country means nothing. You are often like starting again. and it takes maybe at least 5 years. That's why those who just jackpot, recent people just came to, and they think that in 2 years I'll buy a house in Banana Island.
Yeah,
I often say that.
it becomes a shock to the system,
Yeah,
and and unfortunately, it is the lived reality of most African immigrants, as things are. But you know what? Let me take a slightly different segue
yeah,
and then ask this question. So we tend to say that most administrations, whether it is Nigeria, I think the one in Africa are probably just copying what they've seen in the Western culture. So you hear things like the first 100 days,
mm,
start to say a kind of countdown,
mm,
day 1 to day 100. Now, honestly, I don't know where that idea came from to say count the 100 days. I don't know why it's not 50 days or why it's not 150 days. But somehow people settled on 100 days. Maybe if that's just for numerical convenience. I'm not too sure. But I think the indication is if we notice how you performed the first 100 days, then that gives us a hint of how your governance or the rest of your government will pan out for better or for worse. Now, my question is, assuming we use that premise also, particularly in the context of Africa and Nigeria in particular, what are those indicative manifestation of that government that citizens can look out for to determine whether, okay, that the rest of that governance will be endured or will be hoped? But they have to, you know what? We're in this one. Let's just hope and pray that it ends quickly. Or, you know what? I think we're saying enough that yes, this is the right decision. What should citizens look out for?
yeah. I think the 100 days idea is part of this Americanization of democracy in Africa. I've always argued that why is it that across Africa, it's only presidential system of government that's copied. Whereas when you come to Europe, even Canada, they have different systems. Ireland system is different from the UK. Ireland, we have an elected president that is different from the prime minister. So our president, elected every 7 years, is just for ceremonial purposes. He has no official executive power, but is elected. And we also have a prime minister, similar to the UK.
mm,
And the UK politics is quite different from French politics.
mm,
So in Europe, you have a variety of democracies,
mm,
but they're still democracies because power belongs to the people.
mm,
Whereas if you look at Africa, especially since 1999, 79 actually, since 79, it's always presidential. And we are copying and pasting. So that aside, which is a tragedy because it suggests that we don't have an idea of how to self-govern ourselves. Before Western intervention, before European colonization, we administered our politics.
100%.
The Oyo Empire is a prime example of separation of power between the Alaafin, the Oyo Mesis, Basharun, and all of that. Of course, some of it are well documented, but let's leave that aside again. So what indices should we look for in a government to either give us joy or to give us fear? I looked at Tinubu personally while he was campaigning, and I kind of de-ethnicized myself. Okay, let's assume I'm not a Yoruba person. Let me look at him objectively. What did he do in Lagos? Because part of the campaign rhetoric was that, oh, he built Lagos. He turned Lagos into something significant. His tax stake in Lagos. But if you look at Lagos closely, maybe Lekki as an example, and across Lagos, what has government really done in Lagos? If private enterprise choose to withdraw in Lagos, the state will collapse. Private hospitals, private banks, private estates. Has the government built roads really? Or have they built anything significant? Lekki is an example. as massive as that place is, there's little space or little room for anything public. No public school in Lekki, no public hospital in Lekki. The drainage system in Lekki is a shock. Anytime it rains, it's like a lagoon, you know? So, okay, on the first day, he came into government. He removed fuel subsidy. He didn't do, all of them said they were going to do the same. But this is somebody coming into government without full access to all the information required, without a clear policy. And you took out the lifeblood of the economy. 2023, around March, fuel was 140 something. In less than 1 year, it became 1,600. Did income go up that way? No. And because fuel affects transportation, it affects accommodation, it affects everything.
Affects everything. And power is a mainstay.
The whole nation was just set on fire. I'm not saying don't remove fuel subsidy, but put in place measures. You know, it's only in Nigeria and very autocratic states, although they claim to be democratic, that government policies are not discussed. It's only in Nigeria that there's no openness about policy. Why? Because those policies are not about people, they're about the rich and powerful. And that's the sadness. So how do you know? Why do people love Obi? Why do they kind of wanted him to be the president? Because of his articulation and because of his people-centric policies.
Exactly. That's true.
Yeah, and I think that's what the Bible also talks about. That, as we were told growing up back in Agowe, that if people are not at the center of any plan, it may not be God's plan. So yeah, listen to their rhetorics, listen to what they say, look at their policies closely, and then you can figure out easily that, oh, it's going to be an endurance game. Not, look at what Burkina Faso is doing. Look at what that guy is saying. We want to have our own minds. We want to control our destinies. We want to. But what our leaders are doing, especially what Tinubu is doing, is just copying and pasting policies from the World Bank. They said the same thing. In fact, I didn't like Buhari until I kind of learned more about him. They said the same thing to Buhari: deregulate the economy, deregulate the currency. Buhari said, if I do that, I will wipe off the middle class. I would rather see Nigerians enjoy some comfort and Nigeria as a nation borrow money. But Tinubu has done the opposite. Nigerians are uncomfortable and Nigeria seems to be making money. But where is the money going? If the money is being plowed into projects, maybe people in 2 years or 2.5 years, at least we'll have seen some fruits. But in 2.5 years of government, they're already campaigning about 2017, 2027. Sheyi Tinubu is probably going to be the next governor of Lagos State. And people are just like, oh, because we've been conditioned, like you said, to just take it in. Just take it in and look for a way out.
Might it be that the cost of dissent is so high that people think, no, it's not worth it. So I'll just carry on, smile, even though I suffer.
Fella said, suffering and smiling.
I kind of rephrased a song in that way to say that. But
Suffering and smiling.
is that the reality of people that you see? When people, you see, like you said, if people feel so disempowered and there are no organized civil society that can meaningfully challenge the status quo, the risk is probably way too high for just anyone to say, oh, you know what, I disapprove of this. You probably say, you know what, I don't even have any voice. And then there's no power on my side. So I better just go along with it. Hopeful, and then you revert back to hope that hopefully someday it will be better.
Yeah. two things. Sorry, two things to kind of take away from your comment. One is that that's one of the political economy of most churches in Nigeria now. Like church has become where people run to because of bad governance. And we pray about every small thing. To travel, we pray. To get a job, we pray. Electricity, we pray. Then we buy anointing oil, and then we give seeds, and people's desperation is being fed on by some ministries. I'm not saying no names mentioned, but you get the picture of what I'm painting.
We're sweeting God. God, you know what? I'm on your side, though. Let me sweeten I do so that remember me, oh. Don't forget me, oh.
And the second point is that, this kind of keep taking it,
Mm.
keep taking it. We don't find it in other democracies.
Mm.
In France, they are quick to protest.
Mm.
In England, in the US.
Mm.
But it's also a sign of a nation that has been under years or decades of oppression. Like all three of us, we experienced military rule in our lifetime when we were in college. I remember when Abacha died.
Yeah.
It was the biggest celebration on campus that year. But the hope I have is that our children don't know these things. They're not as conditioned as we are.
But let
Even
me
from our,
add a question there, oh.
even
See,
within our families, our kids are more articulate than us.
they are, but they don't live on the continent. In
No,
fact,
I mean those who live on the continent, it's going to filter down.
okay. I
Yeah, that's the hope. That's going to filter down. It's going
see.
to, they're not as bad as we were when we were growing up because they're a bit more open. They have social media. They see what's happening across the world. They're beginning to question dad, what's going on? Like our kids here, um, they, you can't just bamboozle them.
You are 100% right on this. I was speaking to something. They're not quite teenagers. They're like maybe like late, I think the early 20s. I was saying there's one thing I've observed with your generation and mine, that your tolerance level is so low. I said, we were trained in tolerance. I mean, we have degrees in tolerance,
Well, yeah.
but
That's so true.
and that honestly, there are pros and cons to everything, isn't it? So we will have some kind of we have inbuilt resilience to say, you know what, it should be better, and we have a bit of staying power. But I think that generation won't take most of this, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Regardless of where they live, it doesn't matter whether they live in Nigeria or live in outside of Nigeria, they just won't take it.
Gen
Yeah,
Z.
I think we can see a bit of that during the Lekki shooting massacre.
Yes.
We
Yes.
saw a bit of that kind of
Yes.
intolerance.
Yes.
And
Because
I can tell you, if Nigeria doesn't correct itself, we might still witness more of that.
oh yes. Yes. Yeah. Young people are not taking it like we did. Yeah, they'll be more, and some of them they may be raised in Europe or the US. Some of them go back home, or they have connections back home, or they are influencing people back home,
And
and
they are learning about the culture back home.
they can see the problem.
My children, they are as much Nigerianized like the people back in Nigeria.
Yeah, that's so true. That's very popular in the UK too.
Do you know, my observation is as immigration policies tend to get toughened around other countries, inevitably it means the route to emigrate might kind of narrow a bit,
Yeah,
which would mean people that will have said, okay, my default response is let me just get out of this.
yeah,
There's nowhere else to go. It
yeah,
means that the backs are up to the wall.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, this place has to work for me.
they have to
Exactly.
fight.
Exactly.
They have
And
to fight.
that's something I'm hoping that we will seize the opportunity to be smart and say the if you look at demography of Nigeria particularly, the population, the youth population is, I'm sure it's definitely over
65, 65, 70%.
between 75 and 75% if the statistics are done right. That is huge wealth. That is huge demographic pool.
Yeah.
And it's a double-edged thing. If you tap in and give them hope, you will find a vibrant country that
Exactly.
will be full of energy. The
Yeah.
economy will be buoyant. But if they feel frustrated, hopeless, like, there's nothing from it, and they can't go elsewhere,
Yeah. That would be
it's a combustible thing, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's something that is a little concerning for me. But I'm quite keen to see how we can leverage, or perhaps um, tilt the odds in our favor.
Yeah.
In that is as a nation. That's what I'm talking about.
I agree because national development is not a straight line.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes revolutions are needed.
Mm.
Sometimes things like that need to happen for a reset because left to those who benefit from this system, they don't want it to change. They are
And
thinking about
maybe we should
short-term.
also make this point that the revolution does not have to be a bloody one.
Oh, yes.
I think that is very, very important.
Yes.
It
Yes.
can be an ideological
As a
revolution.
matter of fact, Shegun, what you're
Yes.
saying is true. I already see technological revolution.
Yes.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
already
It's
see a
coming
lot
to
of
Nigeria and Africa
intellectual
as a
revolution.
whole. If
It,
Yes.
technology is going
particularly
to be huge in the
particularly
next
in
decade.
this day of AI
Yeah,
and all
Yes.
this,
yeah, yeah,
there is generative
yeah,
AI. There is
yeah,
even the big one on the horizon is AGI,
yeah.
What does
and
that mean?
is artificial
And
generative.
general intelligence.
That is let me just say, is a big one. I'll put it at that. I won't say any more than that. But the way all that is coming up is at a point you may not be able to put a lead
Mm.
on on how this will transpire.
Yes.
Societies will change, frankly, and
Yes.
like you said, it's not nobody's going to be putting out his neck anywhere.
Well, yeah,
It's
yeah,
going to be a technological fight.
yeah,
Yes. Yes. And we can't wait for it to happen
yeah.
because
It's coming. It's coming.
The,
It's
because
just a
people are
matter of
suffering.
time.
the
That's
chips
Yeah.
will
that's
fall,
that's the bottom line
the
for
chips
me.
will fall where they may, frankly,
Yeah,
and
people are
that's what's
suffering.
happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So,
For us in the West, we're comfortable, but and I know you have like secondary school WhatsApp group, and sometimes if you listen to the conversations going on there and then their level of thinking, you would notice that some are really, really struggling.
no, but,
And
but think about it. Even if you don't have secondary school WhatsApp group, how about members of your family? Because
family,
because
yeah.
because you can't uproot all your family members out of the
No,
country to another
no.
place. So we everyone is still connected, whether we like it or not.
yeah.
So which means the option of it not working is just a non-existent one. It has to work.
We are paying the price too.
Mm.
Like
We do.
most of the wealth we are generating, we are spending it backwards. We're
Exactly.
not using it to build further wealth.
Yeah.
We are taking care of somebody else's education, somebody's child, somebody's medical bills. Imagine if there's less of that,
Mm.
this remittance back home. And as much as we resist, the
And
cost
it's
will
huge.
come.
It's
And
huge.
that point you made is a very big one because there's a saying that if you are always starting from the scratch, you are not building a legacy.
Mm.
Mm,
So which means if as you earn, you are plowing it back to just to kind of do sustenance effort,
Mm.
i.e. to eat, to find shelter, just
mm.
to basic needs, then it's a cycle that just keeps you at that Maslow pyramid. You're just recycling in that very low pyramid.
Psychological
You
needs.
can't build a legacy that way. Legacies are not built by attending to just what to eat, what to drink, or where
Yes.
to live. It's impossible. It means that your children's children are going to be starting again and again and again. So that's the danger. Like, so I agree with you that indeed we are paying some price
Yeah.
on this.
All right. Victor, I have another very important question to ask you. And this is uh, personally, I am taking my time to study different civilization that has existed. I've spent time studied about the Egyptian civilization, the Greek civilization, and even our modern day civilization. Currently, I'm also learning a bit about China and my understanding about China is a little bit improved than what it used to be before. Uh, you know, I know that it is possible to have a flourishing society. Initially, I used to think that to have a flourishing society, it has to take centuries at least, maybe 400 years, 400 years, like the way countries like societies like United Kingdom, even America, the way they evolved, it took them several years before they became a superpower. Of course, China has always been there all the while, but we know that for a period of time, there was a total silence in the evolution and the development of the Chinese people. But in the maybe early 70s, that was when China began to do something intentional about their society. And then initially, people were mocking them. If you remember, even back in Nigeria, when something comes from China, we say it mockingly. Chinese product. But today, even America cannot just call product coming from China a Chinese product anymore, because they are right there at the same pedestal with America. Now, we can see that within the space of 20, 30 years, this national prosperity is possible. Within just 2-3 decades, it is possible. A generation can actually witness a society that is transformed from an impoverished society into a prosperous society. A generation can actually witness that. We've seen that in China. We've seen that in South Korea. Thank God you were in South Korea for some extended period of time. We've seen that in South Korea. We've seen that in many other countries like Dubai, Qatar, Singapore, Philippines. We've seen.
Sorry if don't say I'm stealing your thunder.
Yeah.
Let's look closer home. Rwanda.
Rwanda, exactly. Rwanda, exactly. And we know that this thing is possible. There is no magic about it. It is possible. So I just want you to, because this is one of your area of specialty, and I know you must have delved into it to really understudy what can make it work. So I just want you to walk us through what African society needs to do to have a flourishing society. What are the recipes for a flourishing society?
Wow, that's a million-dollar question. But I think the starting point, like you rightly said, is a change in the leadership, because it is the political class in every society that determines the present and the future of that society. Like the most important institution in the United States is the Senate, is Congress, because it's like the brain of a nation. They have powers to tame a president, and they have the power of collective thinking. Yeah, we don't have the right people in the right places. It still comes back to election, but we've dealt with that exhaustively. But one of the major things that the political class must equip themselves with is that nobody's your friend. And that's the truth. No continent, no nation is your friend. Europe is not your friend. China is not your friend. United States is not your friend. There are no helpers.
Anywhere.
Nobody's coming to save you. That's the foundation of everything, because that's the beginning point. Everybody is there for their interest. China is in Africa for its interest. The United States is there for its interest.
That's true.
So diplomatic relations, giving us aids, technical assistance, is not nothing for nothing. It's
keep on
something for
down.
something. Part of it is to shape our elections, to support certain candidates. They fund certain parties because they know that once a certain group is there, certain laws will be passed in their interests.
And we can see the body language of some countries during the last election in Nigeria. I'm not going to mention this, but we can clearly see their body language.
Yeah.
They didn't say things, but people who could read in between the lines could see their body language.
Yeah, because it's in their interest if certain people are in government.
Yeah.
So that their economic interest everything is about interest, economic interest. For example, this I kind of came to understand that before every election in Nigeria, whoever goes to Chatham House to give a speech becomes the president. Whoever goes there first, Buhari went there first, became the president of Nigeria. Tinubu went there
Oh my
first.
God.
It's more of we have
Wow.
an interest to protect. Let's listen to you. Does your presidency accommodate our interests? There are some things we don't want you to touch. Once you guarantee that, yes, these are not going to be touched. Those things are not pro people. They are not pro masses. They are pro governments. They are pro capitalists. And once you're able to tick those boxes, you're fine. You enjoy international support. So that's the biggest problem we have. That's the biggest problem we have. Those who collude with the West. Nkrumah wrote a fantastic book in 1965 about neocolonialism, that countries who have this relationship with their former colonial masters will never develop. And I think it's still true today, how many years later, that pattern has remained in place. Yeah. So until that is addressed, of course, Westerners, they present and they paint Africa as something's wrong with you. They have no hand in what is happening there. But we can see their hands all over us.
All over the place.
All over our resources, all over our politics. One woman said to me, she was Nigeria's ambassador to the Philippines. She said, once you get to a certain level at the embassy, any embassy in the world, any country, you are part of the SSS. You are part of the Secret Service. That 80% of embassy staff, once you get to the senior rank, you are part of the intelligence community. You are a spy. Their job is not just to wear tie and go to occasions. Their job is to collect information, to bug offices, to hear what you are saying, what you are thinking, which direction you are going, to buy politicians, so that the policies that are made on behalf of people are actually on behalf of vested interest of capitalists. Burkina Faso just took over their minds. Uranium that was sold to France for less than 110p was sold for 200. Same quality, same quantity. So France was paying 10p, but they could sell it for 200 pounds on the international market.
I like what the guy is doing, but I just hope it will not end up the way.
Well, thank God for Russia. It will have been dead today.
I know, yeah. There are several attempts on his life.
Is it possible to take a pause?
Yeah.
Yeah, because my daughter will reject me as the dad if I don't go and get her from the train station very soon.
Okay.
Yeah, she just finished from work. Is it okay if I disappear for half an hour or more?
Well,
Or we can do a part 2 or something.
yeah, we can do a part 2.
Okay.
Part 2. So
Part 2, yeah.
we should wrap up at this point. Kunle, I don't know, do you have anything to say at this point?
No, I think this has been a fabulous conversation, and it feels like there's a lot more that we can get into.
I say so. There's a lot more.
Definitely, we'll get a part of this.
I suggest so. I suggest so.
All right. So, on behalf of all of us, I want to appreciate our viewers who have been listening to us for the past 1 hour. I think we've spent about an hour already. This has been an interesting conversation. between Victor, Kunle, and I. And like we've always been saying, this is not presenting ourselves as one superior expert anywhere. We are just trying our best to contribute our own bits into reshaping the society, into helping the society, particularly the younger generation, to grow so that we can all take our rightful place as good citizens of the continent. So on this note, I want to thank you, Kunle. I want to thank you, Victor, for showing up on this podcast. Definitely we will get a part of this. Hope to see you some other time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for the platform. Thank you.
Thank you,
my regards to your families.
All right, thank you. All right, see you guys some other time.
Indeed.
Yeah, bye.